Inaz and the Two Unmarriageable Lovers. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 4 books. Book 1. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the real love story of 2 unmarriageable lovers. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 24. Traveling through the Valley of the Shadow of Death. From Kamas Mushat City, the 2 fugitive lovers traveled by their rented car to the city of Nadran. From Nadran, they traveled for some time before they crossed the border and ventured into the war-torn country of the Yemeni people. Yemen is the most dangerous place on the planet Earth when Tariq and Inaz fled to it. It is more dangerous than Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Afghanistan. Every Yemeni city, town, and village is considered a target for the Saudi jet fighters. Day and night, those Saudi Air Force planes bombard the entire country of Yemen. On a daily basis, the Saudi-led coalition airstrikes kill hundreds of civilians. Therefore, the poorest Arab country in the Middle East can be correctly called a war-zone country. The war plagued the Yemeni country with many curses. Due to lack of food, people were starved to death. War and famine destroyed the lives of thousands of Yemenis. The Saudi-led coalition has continued to escalate its campaign against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels, resulting in heavy civilian casualties. Moreover, the cholera epidemic and coronavirus claimed the lives of thousands. The horrific conflict and humanitarian crisis in Yemen have reached unspeakable limits. In the midst of intensified attacks, stark famine, and a cholera epidemic, civilians are paying a devastating price. Children have been turned into skeletons due to famine. 5 million children are especially at risk for starvation, dangerously on the edge of mass deaths. With hospitals and schools damaged and water in noticeably short supply, immediate action is needed. That is the sad situation in the war-torn country of the Yemenis when the 2 Sudanese fugitive lovers arrived there. Their final destination is the coastal region of Hodeidah. They plan to seek the help of the UN officials upon their arrival in that city. If they manage to reach safely the city of Hodeidah, the lovers want to flee through the assistance of the UN workers to Djibouti. From Djibouti, they decided to escape to Somalia. From Somalia, they can travel to Kenya. When they reach the capital of Kenya, they either try to get some traveling documents to their fatherland from the Sudanese embassy or else seek refugee asylum at Nairobi City. Due to the long-lasting civil war, Somalia is called a lonely planet. It is a failed state. It is the second dangerous country after Yemen. Without exaggeration, every male in the Somaliland is a fully armed and dangerous Muslim terrorist. On a daily basis, women are raped, flogged, and stoned to death. Female children as small as 8 to 9 years old had been given in Islamic halal child marriages to men as old as their fathers or grandfathers. Every Somali girl is genitally mutilated since early childhood. Due to that barbaric procedure of female genital mutilation, many of those child brides were raped to death on their first wedding nights. It took Tariq and Inaz over a month to reach the city of Hodeidah. During that long and hazardous trip, the lovers had been taken captive twice by the Houthi rebels. In both events, they miraculously escaped. In their first captivity, the building in which they were imprisoned was partially destroyed through an airstrike by a Saudi jet fighter. Their captor fled for his life. The lovers fled too. In their second confinement, an internal conflict suddenly erupted between the Houthi militiamen and some armed local Yemeni people. The cause of the deadly fight was a dispute over food supplied by the UN. The armed Yemenis defeated the Houthi rebels and freed all their war prisoners. The 2 Sudanese fugitive lovers Tariq and Inaz were among those lucky prisoners who escaped the brutality of the Houthi rebels. By then, Tariq and Inaz had already lost their rented vehicle and their cash after they spent 5 days in that lawless land of the Arab Yemenis. Their vehicle was robbed with the gun pointed at their faces. Luckily, the Yemeni guys who robbed their car did not gang rape Inaz or try to molest her sexually. They only forced Tariq to empty his pockets of all the cash he had and hand the key to his car to them. They also stole his cell phone and expensive watch. Inaz had no jewelry or even a watch in her hand. So, the rest of their trip was done either on foot or through a donkey ride. Their miserable situation compelled them to steal a donkey from a Yemeni shepherd boy. The shepherd boy was sleeping when they stole his animal. They traveled on the donkey for many days before their slow beast of burden died of lack of water and grass. They traveled most of those horrifying days while they were starving and both were penniless. At Hodeidah City, the lovers could not get what they wanted. The workers of the UN do not allow anyone who is not one of them to be on board in any of their ships. Some of the male workers said they could smuggle the fugitive lovers in one of their UN ships if the African husband Tariq would allow them to have sex with his lovely Arab wife Inaz. They said if she refused their sexual advances, they could rape her if her Sudanese husband would give them the green light to do so. Without informing his Arab girlfriend about the sex demand of those wicked UN workers, her African lover had harshly rebuked them and vehemently rejected it. He even quarreled with some of them and threatened to kill any man who would dare to touch the hand of his Arab wife. Nonetheless, a couple of days later, the two fugitive Sudanese lovers were secretly smuggled inside a UN ship by a Good Samaritan. Their helper understood their urgent need and had pity on them and therefore allowed them to travel on one of the UN's ships. Their Good Samaritan is a Somali man who is a citizen of Djibouti. By then, the lovers' external conditions would melt the heart of the devil. They lost so much flesh and became emaciated due to the many days of going on without food or water. Sometimes, the necessity for survival forced them to eat grass like wild beasts. Other times, they drank water from the filthy gutter of stagnant rainwater. In fact, dirty gutter and rainwater are rarities in the Valley of the Shadow of Death. When the fugitive lovers boarded that UN ship, they were dressed up in rags. The son of one of the 5 richest men in Khartoum and the daughter of the proudest Sudanese lawyer in Sudan were dressing up in rags and starving to death in the poorest country in the world. Whether we call it a miracle or a bit of rare luck, the two fugitive Sudanese lovers' lives had been snatched from the jaws of death upon their arrival in Djibouti. So, they did not need to venture into the second dangerous country in the world, the land of terror and terrorists, Somalia, and hope to survive among the deadliest terrorist groups on the planet Earth, Al-Shabaab. Tariq was able to contact his wealthy daddy in Khartoum and informed him about their miserable conditions and their whereabouts. Again, it was the same Somali Good Samaritan who allowed them to board the UN ship at Hodeidah City had helped Tariq to contact through the phone his father from Djibouti City and break to him the good news of the exact location of their whereabouts. He explained in tears to his father their miraculous exit out of the kingdom of Tartarus and their hazardous 1-month trip through the Valley of the Shadow of Death of the Yemenis. In the meantime, for over a month, the two lovers' families were receiving many conflicting reports about the fate of their children. One report said they were kidnapped by the Saudi police and cruelly murdered. The rumor said further the Saudi police flew them in a helicopter and threw them alive in the dangerous part of the Sahara Desert, which is called the Empty Quarter. Not even the devil can survive for one day in that scary and deadly arid desert of Saudi Arabia. Another report mentioned that Inaz and Tariq were kidnapped by some angry Sudanese people immediately after the trial was over, and no one knows where they took them or what they did to them. Yet, one more report stated that the two friends fled as soon as they left the courtroom, and likewise, no one has an idea where they fled to or whether they are still alive or among the dead. This last report was confirmed by the Riyadh police when the father of Inaz contacted the Saudi authorities. They informed him that the surveillance cameras showed that the former husband of his daughter who defended her in the Sharia court had taken hold of her hand in front of the court gate and hurried her in a taxi, and both disappeared. After that, the father of Inaz contacted her Arab husband in Riyadh, and from him, he received hundreds of lies about his daughter and her African lover Tariq. The nastiest of those lies were the ones that said Inaz was always in contact with her black and ugly Karabi lover. He falsely claimed to have caught her many times talking to him on the phone. He also said, one night, while they were sleeping in their bed, Inaz got up and went out of their bedroom and sat on the balcony and began to write a love letter to her black and ugly boyfriend Tariq. When he woke up and did not find her sleeping beside him, he saw the light was on their balcony. He then came out of his bedroom and walked tiptoed and caught her red-handed while she was writing her disgraceful love letter to her ugly African lover while she has the most handsome and highly educated Arab husband in her tribe. In his anger, he burned the letter and put its ashes in the water and forced her to drink it. Furthermore, the wicked gay husband said, for a long time Inaz refused to allow him to have sex with her. After he caught her many times, she openly confessed her love for her former fur neighbor Tariq Haroun Alajabo and demanded a divorce because she wanted to marry him. Osama said to her father, the improper behaviors of Inaz had compelled him to beat her many times. He admitted to his father-in-law that many times he used his big stick and long whip and beat her until she lost consciousness. Then the handsome Arab husband, who has his own Saudi husband, falsely claimed that when he slept with Inaz, he did not find her to be a virgin bride. When he questioned her about it without shame, she had admitted that she lost her virginity when her virgin pussy was penetrated for the first time by the big penis of her African lover Tariq when she was living with him in the same apartment during their study in India. The gay husband also added that he had made his wife Inaz pregnant on purpose in order to block her chance of leaving him and going back to Sudan and remarrying her black African lover, who looks like an ugly crow. Eventually, she ran away from him and went to the Sudanese embassy and falsely accused him of being gay, a drunkard, a gambler, and a pimp who sold his wife as a female sex slave to his Saudi friends. She also falsely claimed that she was impregnated by one of those 7 Saudi men who raped her inside her husband's apartment and with his knowledge and consent. The evil husband then thanked his Allah because neither the embassy of Sudan nor the Riyadh police authority had believed a single accusation against him. Finally, Osama said he strongly believed that his wife had run away with her Karabi lover as soon as those foolish judges of the Sharia court had erroneously declared her not guilty of any crime. The gay husband concluded his false report by saying he will never give Inaz a divorce and she must remain his lawful wife until her death, or his death set them apart. The proud Sudanese lawyer, Mr. Ahmed Saleh, believed everything the handsome and highly educated Arab husband of his daughter had told him about his so-called rebellious and fugitive wife. Consequently, her father and mother became extremely outraged upon hearing those nasty reports about their rebellious daughter. They believed that their Arab daughter Inaz is now hiding somewhere in Saudi Arabia and committing adultery with the Black Crow who wanted to marry her by hook or crook. Therefore, both parents swore by their holy Quran that even if the black African boy Tariq happens to be the last man on earth, they will not allow him to marry their beautiful Arab daughter Inaz. In the meantime, shortly after talking to his lost and found son, the Sudanese business tycoon, Mr. Haroun Alajabo, flew in his own private jet from Khartoum City to Djibouti City. On the following day, the 2 fugitive lovers Tariq and Inaz have been flown back to the capital of Sudan. They are like 2 dead and miraculously resurrected lovers. Accordingly, the runaway Sudanese wife, Inaz Ahmed Saleh, has been brought back to her fatherland without the need for the issuing of a passport or an airfare from her Sudanese embassy at neither Djibouti City nor Nairobi City in Kenya. Chapter 25. The Disgusting Racism. The proud Sudanese lawyer Mr. Ahmed Saleh had already been informed by the wealthy business tycoon Mr. Haroun Alajabo about the miraculous escape of the 2 friends Tariq and Inaz and their whereabouts. So, such good news had reached the ears of the proud man before his Arab daughter and her African lover have arrived safely in their motherland. This time, the proud Sudanese lawyer did not show any interest in traveling with the wealthy business tycoon in his private jet to Djibouti City and receiving his lost and found beloved daughter Inaz with his outstretched arms of a loving father. Also, when the 2 friends arrived at the Khartoum airport, the Sudanese lawyer is not there to receive his dead and resurrected daughter. The two lovers have expected to be received at the airport by the father and mother of Inaz as brave heroes who returned from the enemy front lines after courageously fought deadly battles against dangerous enemies and won. Inaz had honestly been defended by her African lover, and therefore she escaped the stoning sentence. She also had miraculously escaped the rearrest of the Saudi police who wanted to whip her to death. Then, for over a month, the two fugitive lovers fought with evil rebels, war criminals, famine, and looming death in Yemen, and survived until they have been brought back to Sudan. It was nothing short of a miracle that the two fugitive lovers could be able to escape the sword of Damocles which kept hanging over their heads for over a month in the most dangerous and poorest country in the world. But, so far, the attitude of the proud Sudanese lawyer has astonished and puzzled them. Even Mr. Haroun Al-Ajabo sensed something is not right about his former neighbor's reaction to the safe return of his Arab daughter and her African boyfriend who rescued her from her imminent death in Saudi Arabia and smuggled her through the Yemeni border and brought her to Djibouti. Therefore, from the Khartoum International Airport, the wealthy business tycoon decided to take Inaz directly to her parents' house. He rejected the request of his African son Tariq to allow his Arab girlfriend Inaz to come and dine first in their mansion before sending her to the residence of her family. It is the proud Sudanese lawyer himself who responded to the bell ringing and opened the door. He is immediately followed by his Arab wife, Mrs. Siham Silla. The two parents looked tense and angry. They neither greeted nor responded to the greetings of Mr. Haroun Al-Ajabo when he smilingly greeted them by saying Al-Salam Alaikum, Mr. Ahmed Silla and Mrs. Siham Silla. They also have not even requested him and his son to come inside their house and have cups of tea or cold water. How dared you to leave your lawful Arab husband Osama Hashim Silla and ran away with an African boy who is neither your husband nor your brother? Mrs. Siham screamed this racist question on the face of her Arab daughter. And before Inaz can respond to the question of her angry mother, her extremely outraged father hit her with another question. And how dared you open your filthy mouth and accused your good and highly educated Arab husband, who is also your first cousin, with those malicious accusations of being gay, drunkard, pimp, and gambler who sold you as a female sex slave or unpaid prostitute, and then he allowed 7 Saudi men to rape you in his apartment? Mrs. Siham resumed her attack on her daughter. Was it for the sake of this Karabi boy Tariq Haroun Al-Ajabo you ran away from your handsome and highly educated Arab husband Osama Hashim Silla and created all those false accusations against him? You had created all this drama because you wanted to be with this African Tariq who has neither a university degree nor a gainful job in any rich Arab country like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And you, Tariq, shouted Mr. Ahmed Silla, did I tell you in front of your father to go and kidnap my good daughter from her lawful Arab husband and be with her all alone for over a month? Did I not request you in front of your father to go and prove in court you had already divorced Inaz before she had married her cousin Osama? If you have a good sister, resumed the fire-breathing Mrs. Siham, would you allow her to leave her lawful husband and travel for over a month with a man who has no blood relation with her? You stupid and bad girl, thundered Mr. Silla in rage. How dared you to accuse the good son of my brother Hashim of being a gay who married a Saudi man as a bride and his groom do and practices with him shameful sodomy inside his apartment and in front of his lawful wife who is his cousin? Yes, he is, Inaz exploded at last, and he is worse than a gay. He is a useless and dirty Sudanese man who had gambled with the body of his lawful wife. For money's sake, he had sold my thighs to his evil Arab friends. Through gambling, he allowed 7 of his Saudi friends to attack and rape me inside his apartment and in his bedroom. If I ever see him again, I will kill him with my own hands. Shut up, dirty girl, Mr. Silla shouted on top of his voice. I swear by the honor of my father, if you ever dare to speak those lies again about my good and highly educated nephew, I will cut your filthy tongue, and then I will burn your defiled body with fire. I know, and your mother knows, you had committed adultery with this fur boy when you traveled with him for over a month from Saudi Arabia to Yemen and then to Djibouti. Osama is the son of Arabs and the son of good Shajia tribe. He has bachelor's and master's degrees from Khartoum University and having the highest paid job in Saudi Arabia. An Arab husband who has the holy blood of the Prophet Muhammad flowing in his body could not sell his wife, who is his cousin, to other Arab men to rape her in his apartment and on his bed. Mrs. Siham shouted those words very loudly because she wanted her neighbors who are peeping through their walls to hear her justification and defense of her son-in-law. Neither a girl from your father's Shajaya family nor your mother's Jalia family had ever made such nasty accusations against her lawful husband, who is also her first cousin, said the mother again. Your husband Osama had caught you red-handed many times talking on the phone with this furboy Tariq. Without shame, you left your handsome Arab husband sleeping in his bedroom and went to the balcony and began to write a love letter to this African Tariq. Your husband told me he had caught you red-handed and burned your disgraceful letter, and he then forced you to drink its ashes. I wish that night he had cut your throat and then burned your filthy body too. No, these are Osama's lies. I had neither talked on the phone nor written a letter to Tariq. Before I ran away from Osama's apartment, I had never spoken to Tariq since the day you had assaulted me in front of my apartment and almost killed me in Pune City. Inaz is right. The so-called black and ugly African boyfriend of the escaped Sudanese wife who ran away from her Arab handsome and highly educated husband has dared to open his mouth and speak in defense of his Arab girlfriend at last. We had not contacted each other for over a year and a half. Inaz had neither contacted me through the phone nor written a single letter to me. Nonetheless, my love for her all this time has never died or grew cold. Listen, Tariq. Mrs. Siham responded very angrily. Inaz is a married woman. She has a husband. You had no right to go to Saudi Arabia and kidnapped her from her lawful Arab husband. Also, you have neither the right to call a married woman in front of her father and mother your girlfriend, nor she is your lover. Therefore, I am telling you in front of your African father, you must keep yourself away from my Arab daughter. If you thought we are going to force her to divorce her Arab handsome husband Osama and marry her to you, that abominable deed will never happen as long as Inaz has a father and a mother alive. Then the proud father spoke again. Moreover, her lawful husband Osama talked to me and told me that he will never divorce his lawful wife Inaz. He further said to me, Inaz shall remain his wife until her death, or his death set them apart. Only death can dissolve her marriage with Osama. Even if her Arab husband dies, shouted again the arrogant mother, we will never allow our Arab daughter to marry an African boy who has fur father and no Bawiya mother. Therefore, even if Inaz has to remain unmarried widow all her life still, we shall never allow her to marry a Karabi and Jangoui boy like this black Tariq. Even if his family weighs our daughter with pure gold and proposes to give us 100 billion Sudanese pounds as her dowry still, we will not give our Arab daughter to the black African boy who has a fur father and Bawiya mother. Those last racist words of the proud Sudanese lawyer, Mr. Ahmed Saleh, and his arrogant Arab wife, Mrs. Siham, have touched deep inside the dignities of Tariq and his father and made their hearts bleed within their chests. Therefore, the Sudanese wealthy business tycoon could no longer tolerate the racist insults of the parents of the Arab girl Inaz toward his only African son Tariq. Listen, Mr. Ahmed Saleh and Mrs. Siham Saleh, Mr. Harun Alajabo said in a deep voice, my son, and I have not come to your house to beg you both to give us your Arab daughter in marriage. We have just brought you your daughter. My African son had sacrificed his engineering study in Egypt and flew to Saudi Arabia and put his life in great danger because he wanted to save the life of your Arab daughter. If it were not for my son's testimony in the Sharia court, your daughter would have been stoned to death in Riyadh City. Instead of thanking him, you have insulted him with every possible racist insult an ungrateful person could ever utter. From today onwards, Inaz and Tariq's roads have been parted forever. Even if my son Tariq meets your daughter Inaz on the road, he will not greet her or talk to her again. Inaz shall be considered from today onwards dead in the life of Tariq. They are no longer friends or lovers or related to each other in any way. No, Inaz screamed in anger. Tariq is my African lover, and we shall remain lovers forever. Shame on you, Inaz. Mrs. Siham reacted in indescribable rage. If you ever call this Karabi boy again your African lover, I will cut your tongue. Don't forget you are still a married woman and have a lawful Arab husband, and you are carrying his baby in your womb. The proud Sudanese lawyer, Mr. Ahmed Saleh, could no longer control his boiling anger. So, when his married Arab daughter has openly confessed her love for the fur boy, he struck her face until he knocked her down on the ground. His right foot quickly kicked her waist. Inaz screamed loudly from the terrible pain. Mrs. Siham joined her angry husband, removed her shoe, went into a hysterical rage, and hit her fallen daughter many times on her head. Inaz began to roll over and over as her parents went on and on in mercilessly hammering her knocked-down body. She is rolling around like a snake that has been hit by sticks all over her body. The Sudanese business tycoon, Mr. Haroun Alajabo, took hold of his son's hand and walked towards his car. While the African lover is walking out of the house of his Arab girlfriend, Tariq began to hear Inaz calling him by his name while she is begging him not to leave her again and go. She asked him to come and protect her from being killed by her outraged father. "Please, Tariq, do not leave me again. I need you to protect me from my outraged father before he slays me in another honor killing. Do not go, Tariq. Come back and prove to me your love. Prove our love by defending me from the cruel murder at the hands of my angry parents. I love you, Tariq. I want to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you. I will abscond with you to Egypt and marry you over there. Please don't let me be slaughtered like an animal by my angry father and my mad mother." Nevertheless, the African boyfriend once again ignored the tears and pleadings of his Arab girlfriend and walked away. He expected this time her angry father will kill her for sure. He knows in Sudan no one can save her from her outraged father. The African lover Tariq once again felt he is helpless and has no right to interfere between a daughter and her family. Therefore, he concluded that he could do nothing to rescue his beloved Inaz from her second honor killing. The same scenario has been repeated again in Khartoum and in Sudan, as had happened to his Arab girlfriend when he fled from her in Pune city in India and left her to be slain by her outraged father because of her love for him and their fake marriage. Tariq can still hear the screaming of his beloved Inaz while she is begging him to rescue her after his father's car drove a couple of houses away from the crime scene. Luckily, once again, it is the neighbors who rescued Inaz from her second honor-killing attempt. But this time, no one dared to call the police or the hospital ambulance. In Sudan, a father or a husband can beat his disobedient daughter or rebellious wife in the middle of the main street, and no one has the right to stop him from discipline his woman. Even the policemen have no right to interfere in such domestic violence. It is an absolute right granted by Allah the Almighty to his favorite creature, the man, which has been revealed in the divine book of Muslims, the Holy Quran, in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 34. Moreover, the alleged infallible prophet of Allah Muhammad said, "The man should not be asked why he is beating the members of his household." Chapter 26. The House of Obedience. After Tariq and his father left without trying to rescue Inaz, a couple of good neighbors came in and begged the furious parents to stop killing their only daughter. With so much difficulty, the neighbors managed to save the life of the badly battered pregnant wife. They used her pregnancy as an excuse to rescue her. So, to protect the life of the infant of the so-called handsome Arab husband of Inaz, the parents stopped their attempted honor killing of their only daughter. After she rescued from her second honor-killing attempt, Inaz has been locked up inside a dark room. She is bleeding and her many injuries are torturing her with so much pain. Luckily, this time she has not been attacked with the intention of slaying her in an honor killing. Her parents just wanted to stop her from confessing her love to a black Karabi boy and also preventing her from accusing her Arab husband of being gay and pimp. The proud and arrogant parents have never accepted those two daring actions of Inaz. They believed the lies of her Arab husband. After hearing his reports, they concluded that their daughter did what she did because she wanted to find an excuse to break up her marriage and then marry the black Karabi boy. That fateful day, Tariq's father had heard enough insults which had been spoken on his face and his son's face. Calling a Sudanese person a Karabi on his face is the same as calling a person a slave or black Negro. It is a racially loaded term. Mr. Haroun Alajabo had been so much humiliated that day, but he was such a gentleman who could control his anger. From the time his son returned from India, he became aware of the love between his African son Tariq and the Arab girl Inaz. Nevertheless, he knew and understood that those two Sudanese friends are unmarriageable lovers. A girl whose parents are from the Shajia and Jaalia tribes, her family will never allow her to marry a boy whose parents are from the Fur tribe and Nuba tribe. In accordance, he decided to put an end to the fruitless friendship of his African son and the Arab girl. When he reached his residence, he narrated to his wife Mrs. Hafsa al-Ajabo what had happened in the house of their former Arab neighbors. Then both parents warned their son from contacting the Arab girl again. The parents also reminded their son that Inaz is still a married woman. Tariq's mother cast serious doubt on the Arab girl's love for her African son. According to her, if Inaz is true in her love for Tariq, she would not have agreed to marry another man. She should have either absconded with her lover or killed herself. By agreeing to marry her Arab cousin Osama, she proved that she has no true love for her African lover Tariq. That is the way the mother convinced her son that his Arab girlfriend is not true in her love and commitment. Then the parents told their son Tariq to choose between his African family and his Arab girlfriend Inaz. His wealthy business tycoon father threatened to disown him and cut all familial ties with him if he contacts Inaz again. His Nobawiya mother swore by Allah and his holy Quran that she will cut one of her breasts if her son marries his Arab girlfriend. So, Tariq's hope to marry his beloved Inaz has been dashed forever. After the sad confrontation with her parents, at last, Tariq came to terms with the bitter reality that Inaz and he are simply not made for each other. As his Arab girlfriend told him from the beginning of their love affair that they are unmarriageable lovers. Consequently, he decided to forget about his Arab girlfriend and look for another girl who must love him no matter what his color or racial ancestry is. She has to accept him as a marriageable life partner. Inaz had told him time and again that they are unmarriageable lovers and agreed to marry her Arab cousin without coercion from her parents. Accordingly, he accepted the words of his father that his Arab girlfriend Inaz has died in his life, and their roads have been parted forever. They have become two parallel lines that they shall never meet again. Besides, Tariq thought his Arab girlfriend Inaz had been slain in an honor killing because of her love for him. After a week from the day of his return to Sudan, Tariq's parents sent him back to Egypt to pursue his engineering study. Meanwhile, Inaz is facing many problems. Some are at home with their angry parents, and some are legal issues. At home, on that fateful day, Inaz had not only lost her African lover forever, but the cruel beating of her angry parents had caused her to miscarry her baby. Her mother called in a nurse and then bribed her for the private treatment of her badly hammered daughter. After that, the so-called disobedient daughter is subjected to indefinite house confinement. Meanwhile, the Riyadh Police Authority came to know that the fugitive Sudanese wife Inaz Ahmed Silla had reached Sudan. Some neighbors of the Arab family in Khartoum who have relatives working in Riyadh City had passed such information to them. And those relatives reported the matter of the wanted Sudanese wife to the Riyadh police. Accordingly, the Riyadh Police Authority is trying to convince the Khartoum Police Authority to extradite the jail female escapee Inaz Ahmed Silla to Saudi Arabia for the finalization of her incomplete trial. There is a legal agreement between Sudan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that suspects or condemned jail escapees who are serving prison terms or in remand must be extradited upon their arrest. Therefore, the Sudanese lawyer exercised his legal authority and bribed some top police officials in Khartoum and through them blocked that demand. Mr. Ahmed Silla learned through the media, if his daughter is sent back to Riyadh City, she will be jailed for 5 years and flogged 200 lashes. The father knows that there is no mortal being can survive after receiving 200 whips on his naked back. Her so-called handsome and highly educated Arab husband, Osama Hashim Silla, had also learned that the ran-away rebellious wife had returned to her family in Khartoum City and hence asked her parents to send her back to him in Riyadh City. The wicked gay and pimp scared that his Sudanese wife may expose his evil deeds. Therefore, he wants her to be returned back to the land where the woman is treated like a dangerous creature and imprisoned inside her husband's house. He also wants to hand her over to the Saudi police authority so she will be retried, condemned, and whipped to death. The parents of Anaz told him that their daughter threatened to burn herself alive if they force her to go back to her Arab husband. Osama did not give in to her life threat. He countered-attacked her threat by uttering his threat too. He threatened to take the matter to the Sharia court and demand the issuing of Hukm al-Ta, or the law of obedience. He also said he will request the Riyadh Sharia court to bring his disobedient wife to Bait al-Ta, or his house of obedience. Meanwhile, Inaz is crying day and night. When she heard from her father about the possibility of dragging her from her parents' house by the Sudanese police authority and chaining her to her seat inside a plane and extraditing her to her evil Arab husband in the kingdom of Tartarus, where she got beaten, imprisoned, and raped by 7 Saudi men. Moreover, she heard that upon her extradition she would be retried, condemned, and given 200 lashes on her naked back and buttocks. The proud Sudanese lawyer knows all the Islamic laws regarding the disobedient wife. So, Mr. Ahmed Sulla understood, if the Sharia court issued the 2 verdicts which are called Hukm al-Ta and the Bait al-Ta against his rebellious married daughter, he can do nothing to stop the police authority from fulfilling their duty. If he attempts to stop them from accomplishing their duty, he will be breaking the law and be held responsible for obstruction of justice. As a lawyer, he swore at the time of his graduation to uphold justice, even if that had to be against his dear ones and other family members. Notwithstanding, the proud Sudanese lawyer, Mr. Ahmed Sulla, has determined not to leave a stone unturned in order to stop his daughter from being dragged by the police authority from his house and taken to Bait al-Ta, which is the apartment of her husband in Riyadh City. After much deliberation, the father decided to smuggle his daughter out of his residence and hide her somewhere far from the reach of the police authority. He decided to send her abroad to another country where no one will know her whereabouts except him and his arrogant wife, Mrs. Siham. So, the daughter is scared the police authority of Khartoum will forcefully send her back to her pimp Arab husband in Riyadh City, who may make her again through gambling an unpaid whore inside his apartment. And the father is afraid his rebellious daughter will be extradited to Saudi Arabia, where she will get flogged to death for her other 49 crimes. Before we end this chapter, let us explain to the non-Muslim readers what we mean by the Hukm al-Ta and Bait al-Ta. Under the Islamic Sharia law, there is an Islamic law called Hukm al-Ta, which means the Sharia court obedience sentence. This law is usually issued by the Sharia court against any married Muslim woman who refused to join her husband in his house or left him without any lawful reason and went to her parents' house or ran away and hid somewhere else without his permission and against his wish. Physical abuse such as beating or raping are not considered sufficient grounds for the wife to desert her husband. Islam allows the husband to beat his rebellious wife and also to rape her if she refuses to allow him to fuck her pussy or sodomize her anus. When the Sharia court issues that law, it must send a police truck full of cops to the place where the disobedient wife is staying or hiding. The cops have the right to beat, drag, force, and whatever other means of coercion they deem necessary to use to transfer that rebellious wife to her husband's house. If her close relatives such as her father, brothers, uncles, or cousins stand on their way, then the policemen are also empowered by the law to apply force against those relatives who tried to obstruct justice. They can beat them or arrest them, and if need requires, they can kill them too. Now, when that first round is performed successfully, whether through the shedding of blood or not, then the cop's duty is over, and the rest is left for the husband. What the policemen have done so far is called in the Sharia, applying Hukm al-Ta or the obedience law. In other words, they have carried out the order of the Sharia court by taking the disobedient wife from where she was found to the Bait al-Ta, or the house of obedience of the man she does not want to live with, her husband. The Bait al-Ta is worse than a maximum security prison. This house can be any locked-up room inside the husband's house. Even a storage room or toilet can be used for this purpose. The disobedient wife will be imprisoned inside that small room or hut indefinitely. During her house confinement, she will be denied all her rights as a human being, including her basic needs. She will be starved deliberately, beaten up continuously, and raped daily by the man she does not want to stay with, her so-called lawful husband. This harsh treatment must continue until her devils leave her head and her spirit of resistance and disobedience crumbles. Many Muslim clerics teach that after Eve disobeyed God and ate the forbidden fruit, she became permanently possessed by him. They mean Satan. Therefore, every woman is inherently possessed by devils, and her head always haunted by jinn and ghosts. Imprisoning the disobedient wife in the house of obedience is part of the Islamic Sharia's teachings. The matter is not just left for the husband to do it or not. It is compulsory and considered part of the process of curing the disobedient wife and delivering her from her rebellious nature, inherited at birth. Having explained that inhumane and misogynistic law, let us now proceed with the heartbreaking life story of the Arab girlfriend Inaz Ahmed Silla and her African boyfriend Tariq Haroun Alajabo.